Hi guys, welcome to Goodman Photography and welcome to the review of the 24 to 35mm f2 lens from Sigma. This is an art lens, so it's one of their higher range models, and I'll start off by showing you what you would get if you buy this. So first of all, we have obviously the white packaging there you'll see on the left, and you also get this snazzy little pouch, which is a nice soft pouch. It's got good foam covering here, and basically just protects the lens. You might use that if you were sort of traveling with the lens, so obviously then you'd put it in your other baggage, so always handy to have things like that. And we also get this nice little lens hood, which is decent plastic. It's nice and tough. I think if you dropped it, you'd probably be quite alright with that, to be honest. It's probably just going to protect the lens nicely. And obviously we have the lens, which I'll go into now. So the lens is quite a heavy affair. It's not small, but it's not too big. It is still a zoom, remember, even though it's a short zoom, so it's still going to have more elements and features inside there which are going to make it larger, just naturally being a zoom lens. You have the autofocus and manual focus switch, the art lens designation here, so that's going to show you, it is one of the higher end lenses that they produce. And we also then have the external focus window, so that you can see sort of if you're doing the hyperfocal distance, things like that. It's useful. We have it in feet and meters. The zoom ring is this one here at the back, and basically that goes from 24 to 35. It's got quite a nice throw to it, nice and smooth. If you were using this for video, you shouldn't struggle too much. And the focus ring is this one here, which is quite a stiff focus ring. When you hit the other end, it does carry on. So when you hit each end, it does carry on. It's got a stop, but it does then allow you to carry on sort of moving it, so you reduce the vibrations. The lens comes with a lens cap, obviously, which is a 82mm filter thread size. So we'll pop that down there. And here we have the front elements and the rear elements. As I said before, the lens is quite large, being a zoom lens, but it's not massive. This is the lens compared to the 35mm art lens, so that's on the right hand side, the 35mm, and then on the left we have the 24 to 35. So you can see there's around about an inch in length on the lens difference, but that's a 35mm f1.4. If this was a 35mm f2, the difference would be quite large, not just an inch, probably a good few inches, but overall, I mean, I'm happy with the size of the 35. You're not going much bigger with the 24 to 35. The main difference comes from sort of the heft of the 24 to 35. As you can see there, that's only got 67mm filter thread size on the 35, but we have an 82 on this one, on the 24 to 35. Okay, so I've jumped into Lightroom and I've got some sample images here for you. So these are just test images, just to give you an idea how the lens performs. This is a wide angle shot, so it's at 24mm at f2, so the widest aperture. I focused around about this area here, and as you can see, it's a very sharp lens even at f2, this, and at its widest focal length, so pretty impressive really. The bokeh is a little bit similar to the 35, which is what I expected, so slightly jittery, slightly nervous, but also mostly very circular, and good colours. I mean, these are just untouched, as shot, you can see there, and just that's exactly how the colours looked. So it's really performing well. If we go to the next one, this is at 35mm, focused on a similar point on this steel cable. Zoom in again, and you can see every single bit of detail there. So really impressive, considering this is at f2, which is the widest the lens goes to in terms of aperture. And again, very circular bokeh. These were obviously trees in the background, but I was in the middle of sort of a forest type place. If we go to here, here's another sort of image shot at f2 again, at at 24 millimeters, and I focused somewhere around here on the tree, and it just provides just a really nice rendition of everything. I like the background, I like the colours, I like just the overall look of the image. Really impressed with it personally. This is a selection of images where I went from f2, you'll see here, to f8 I think it was, and for some reason I ended up at 26 millimeters. I was focused on this little set of branches here, and again at f2 we can see there very sharp detail, very crisp, very total separation from the background. If I go to f2.8, we can see what a difference that makes already. We're starting to see more of the background. If I go back to f2, so very creamy focus here, and suddenly we're starting to see sort of more detail, lots of roundness going on in the bokeh. Same again up to f4 now, and we're starting to see more details focused on here again, and you can really see sort of how sharp this lens is. If you look at this leaf here, probably is the best one. If I zoom in even further, perhaps, just if I can do that, yeah, there's just so much detail resolved by this lens on a, don't forget this is a 42 megapixel sensor. This lens was never designed for that, I'm sure, but it does such a good job. It's really fantastic job it's doing. Pop up to f5.6, again onto the same branch, and just huge amounts of detail. The bokeh is still sort of very creamy in the far distance and very circular in its rendition. And up to f8, and again we're seeing the same sort of results. If I go in on here again, just huge amounts of sharpness and detail. These aren't edited at all, these images, they're straight out of the camera, just basic settings going on with the camera. This image here, I think I need to zoom out, don't I? So basically this was to show lens flare. It's not often we get sun here at the moment, so it was quite a nice opportunity to really sort of test the flaring that's going on. If I move it to here, we can see there's this area here where it's got sort of various colours going on. I guess that's as the light goes through each different elements, but it's not terrible. I actually took the hood off to perform this test, so if you have a lens hood, obviously that will protect it even more. I think this was actually with the lens hood on, so you can see the difference it makes. We go from that to that, and we do still have a little bit of flare there, which is a orangey sort of hue to it. So it's not the prettiest flare ever, but you could probably make something of that if you were aiming to. And then just finally another test here where we've got a sharp focus on this cable here, and you can see just huge amounts of detail, and then a lovely rendition of the background as well. I really do think this is a great performing lens. It's a really good all-round lens, this, absolutely brilliant. Now I have got some comparison shots to the 35mm, which I thought would be worthwhile, so I'm going to pause the video now and then we'll go into those comparison shots shortly. Right, so I've got a comparison here. This was a sign which I used so we could get some idea of sharpness in the centre and how the background looks. Unfortunately, what you'll see here the image is a bit darker on this side than it is here. Now I could have kept everything the same, I could have gone to the same ISOs and everything, but I actually did this on purpose because what you tend to find sometimes with the Metabones adapter, and now it's only very rarely it's happened, it's not all the time, I tend to find once I've got the lens actually working and up and running, it's fine, but what you sometimes get is an exposure difference where it just sometimes totally brightens up the image or darkens it, and then eventually just seems to settle down once it's got its bearings, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely something I've noticed just occasionally, and I left this on purpose, because these two, even though they're different settings of f1.4 here and f2 on the left, They should obviously be very similar in terms of exposure, because I've just let the camera sort of try to expose, and I've tried to expose in exactly the same area without moving as little as possible, you know. But that might not be an accurate way of getting the same exposure, but it's you know, certainly I've seen this sort of effect where I get the bright or dark thing going on with the A7R II and the Metabones before, so you know, it does happen. But anyway, back to this. So we've got, you'll see on the right hand side, we've got f1.4 at 35mm. This is just the 35mm f1.4 lens, and then on the left we've got the 24 to 35, and that's at its widest aperture as well, and that's f2. If I zoom in, so we'll try and get them to the same point in a second. It's just loading at the moment because my computer is being rather slow. But basically what we're going to see is how sharp the areas are in comparison to each other. So you know, we'll hopefully have an idea in a second of how they're looking in comparison. So you can see the 35 on the right hand side is always very sharp. It's just such a sharp lens that is incredible. But I don't think we'll find too much difference at f2 with the 24 either. You know, we can see very similar actually in terms of sharpness. The right hand side image, I would say, is an actual hair softer at f1.4 compared to the f2 image on the left. So if I bring us back to, go to f2 here, sorry, I'll do this again. Right, so that's f2 now. Both of these images now are 35mm at f2. On the right hand side we have the 1.4 lens, the 35mm prime lens, and on the left hand side we have the zoom lens, the 24 to 35. So this is where things will get interesting, because we'll see the comparison, and they are pretty much identical now. So the 24 to 35 is certainly a very sharp lens. There's no doubt about that. They're both sharp lenses, but to have all that flexibility with the 24 to 35 and the sharpness, how good's that? You know, that's a sign of a really pretty good lens to me. If we look at the bokeh, so both are very circular. I'm just trying to sort of pick out if there's any major differences going on. Because of the exposure, there's slight differences in the sort of tone of everything, but really I would say we don't seem to be getting as much circular stuff going on the right hand side on the 35 as we do, sorry, on the left hand side as we do on the right hand side. If we go to this area here, then they're very similar, aren't they? You know, there's not really too much difference going on there at all. So these lenses basically perform very similarly, but obviously with the 24 to 35 you have that extra, you know, extra versatility of the zoom range. If we go back to f1.4 again, you know, you are blurring the background more, definitely at f1.4. You can make things pop out more, but it's not a huge difference. But you can certainly see, what I'll do is I'll just, if I go to this 35mm option, I'll try and brighten that so it just looks a bit more like what we're seeing on the other image. So we're on to the 35 here. If I just bring the brightness up just a little bit, just a hair, and now we'll go back to the library and we'll compare them both. 35, no, right, so they've switched around now, so I just need to switch those over. Okay, so we're back to 1.4 on the right hand side and f2 on the left hand side, 24 to 35 on the left, 35 on the right hand side. So we can see just a bit more now that there is more blur going on around this area. I focused on the sign, and there's definitely more blur going on in the background on the right hand side image, but it's not a huge amount, and that's, you know, pretty remarkable therefore that the 24 to 35 is so good. It's clearly a very good lens. If it compares to that 35 in any way, shape or form, which it clearly does, then it's a good lens, because that 35mm is one of the best out there. It's superb. So that's some comparison pictures. I could go through sort of the f2.8, the f4s, but I think you're getting the idea that, and also most people that buy sort of lenses like this, you know, you want to use it sort of at wide apertures. I certainly do. And you've seen in the previous images how sharp it gets, even at, you know, f2.8 and above on this 24 to 35. So all in all, looking like a great performance. And we'll jump now to my conclusion of using this lens. I'll give you some thoughts on how I've found it when I've used it, you know, and hopefully that will give you some ideas for making a decision whether you're going to purchase. Alright, so you've seen the images, you've seen the lens close up, and I just wanted to give you some thoughts basically on what I thought of the lens while I've had it. Firstly, thank you to Sigma for lending me this in order to review it. I've really enjoyed sort of having the ability to play with this lens, you know, and give it a good test and see if it will work for me as well. I'm hoping to review more Sigma lenses as well, so make sure you keep watching because I'll try and keep on top of their latest products. The 24 to 35 has been great so far for events. I've definitely found it's useful. I don't mind going into higher ISOs, but if I can shoot an event and go lower ISO and therefore improve the image quality, that's never a bad thing. So obviously f2 isn't going to work for every single image, but it really does play into the hands, you know, of keeping the image quality as good as possible. It's been great for that. The 24 to 35 zoom range isn't huge. It's obviously, you know, quite narrow really. So I wasn't sure if it would you know, be of even any use, but I did find it again during events it was fantastic, because if there was that one shot I wanted to get where I just needed a bit of extra width in the focal length, I had it. You know, it was there, it was easy. I'm not switching lenses all the time, because when you do that, especially with a mirrorless camera, obviously the dust just gets on the sensor and you're forever cleaning up all the dust spots, and you know, using the air blower to get all the dust off the sensor afterwards and things like that. So the less that you change in lenses during a shoot, you know, the better. So it really helped with that. Obviously it's only maybe one stop sort of different to your average sort of 24 to 70 lens, which gives even greater flexibility. But I don't know if you would get the same quality, because from looking at the image tests, as you've seen, the sharpness is fantastic, the colour is fantastic. It's a pretty specialised sort of lens, but it's unique, and I think for quite a lot of people it would surprisingly work well. I won't probably be replacing my 35mm Sigma lens. That's the 1.4, which you've seen in the size comparison with this lens. The main reason being is that it's quite a big, chunky, heavy lens, and what it tends to do is when it's on the camera, it does make it a bit front heavy. So it's not to say it's a bad lens, it's really not, it's an amazing lens. But the 35mm f1.4 for me is just that bit more flexible, a bit lighter, a bit smaller. It doesn't really sort of cause me any problems when I'm out and about, if I'm out on street shooting, that type of thing, you know, and just general hobby shooting. So that's what I tend to use the 35 more for. So for that reason I'll probably keep the 35, but I do see myself at some point, if I get more into the event side of things, you know, that type of thing, I do think I'll probably buy one of these 24 to 35s. So I've really enjoyed using it, and obviously to sum up, I'd say it's quite a specialist lens, but if you have that need for it, you won't find anything better. It's really, really decent, everything about it. So thanks for watching. Keep commenting on the videos and make sure you subscribe, because I'll be bringing you more soon. And if you did like the video, give me a thumbs up, because that gives me all the enthusiasm to create more and more videos for you, and you know, just keep doing that. If you watch now, you'll see some image samples that I've taken with this lens.